Shaft sinkhole tragedy. On May 28, 1973, a group of 9 diving experts planned a dive at Mount Gambier's shaft sinkhole. This sinkhole featured a tiny opening leading to a cave with a lake 20 feet below. A beam of light from the surface illuminated the cave and lake, providing essential guidance for the divers. They agreed to stay within a maximum depth of 200 feet to remain in view of the light. However, on the second day, 4 divers decided to explore the western section of the cave and aimed for a depth of 250 feet, a risky new record. In 1973, divers used regular air cylinders rather than mixed gas tanks, making them susceptible to nitrogen narcosis at greater depths. Although the initial divers were experienced, they were unfamiliar with cave diving, increasing the risks. As they descended, one diver recognized the effects of narcosis and returned to the surface, followed by several others. However, the 4 remaining divers pressed on, eager to reach their goal. After a minute or so, the group at the surface became concerned, realizing the 4 divers would soon exhaust their air supply. A few returned to the cave to find them, and they discovered a flashlight and a camera on the bottom, but no trace of the divers. There was a problem that we haven't yet mentioned: silt. The movements of the 4 divers stirred up the long-settled silt into a sand cloud that would take a lot of time to settle back. This reduced visibility to less than an arm's length, removing any hope for orientation for the underwater divers. Without being able to see anything, oxygen running dangerously low and nitrogen narcosis kicking in, the 4 divers drowned. Mossdale Cave Incident. On June 24, 1967, 10 cavers prepared to enter Mossdale Cavern for an expedition to explore and map its deeper passages. The group's 2 leaders had previous experience in the cave, which provided reassurance to the others. Known for its narrow spaces and rare standing room, the cavern posed several challenges. After a few hours, 4 cavers decided to turn back, noticing only a cloudy sky without any alarming signs. The remaining cavers continued their descent to the far Marathon Passage, which measured just 18 inches by 12 inches, with a small stream running beneath them. While they explored, rain started to fall above, prompting the surface group to take cover. Initially, the rain seemed insignificant, but the cavers soon observed rising water levels. As the situation worsened, they opted to return to the entrance, still 3 hours away. Meanwhile, those above witnessed a terrifying sight. A lake of water had formed around the cave's entrance. Unaware of the impending flood, the cavers struggled to find higher ground as the water rose ominously. Rescuers and hundreds of volunteers worked tirelessly to pump out water and supply oxygen, hoping the cavers had found refuge in a safe chamber. Tragically, every one of the cavers perished in the flood. On 24th June 1967, in the world's worst caving tragedy, 6 tough young men perished by drowning in the tortuous extremities of Yorkshire's Mossdale Caverns. Classed as super severe, the cave was notorious as being Britain's most testing. Its far reaches then as now seen by fewer people than have walked on the moon. Jacob's Well tragedy. On November 23, 1983, 2 Texas State University students, Richard and Clark, prepared to dive into Jacob's Well, an underwater hole leading to a hidden cave. While the hole appeared shallow at around 25 feet, its deceptive nature concealed deeper chambers beyond the initial entry point. The first 2 chambers were relatively easy to navigate, but the third contained a narrow squeeze that led to a room 10 feet tall, featuring a tiny tunnel too small for passage. This tunnel, just 2 feet in diameter, had already claimed 2 lives 2 years earlier when a rock slide trapped divers inside. Although Richard and Clark were experienced in regular diving, they were novice cave divers seeking certification in open water diving. Their instructor, Don, was a highly skilled diver who had previously recovered the bodies of the 2 drowned divers. He constantly warned that Jacob's Well was dangerous and attempted to seal the small entry to the 4th chamber with cement, but others reopened it, leaving a defiant message that read, "You can't keep us out." Don had almost lost his life in the well himself when a gravel slide trapped him, but he managed to escape after a harrowing struggle. Intrigued by the stories, Richard and Clark decided to explore Jacob's Well. They successfully reached the 3rd chamber, where the narrow hole awaited. Richard removed his oxygen tank to squeeze through, But when Clark attempted the same, he saw Richard struggling without his tank and gasping for air. Reacting quickly, Clark handed over his regulator, allowing Richard to breathe again. They took turns passing the regulator as they navigated back, but soon they heard a distressing sound. Their tank clanked against a wall, indicating they were headed in the wrong direction. Realizing they had reached a false chimney in the first chamber, Clark swam back to the surface, gasping for air after covering 75 feet in a single breath. Tragically, Richard was unable to escape and drowned. When Clark called the police for help, Dawn arrived, shocked to find his students in such dire straits. According to the Houston Chronicle, at least 12 people have died trying to explore the treacherous waters Jacob's Well. Gollum's Cave Tragedy. On August 18, 2005, a group of 5 friends ventured into Gollum's Cave, also known as the Cave of Death due to its notorious dangers. They arrived at the entrance around 3 a.m., with one friend deciding to wait outside. Upon entering, they faced their first challenge, crawling through a small pool of water. After that, they encountered a fork in the cave, choosing the left path, which led to another small pool. This seemingly harmless pool actually hid an underwater tunnel that required complete submersion. The tunnel was narrow, only 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and each person had to swim through it one by one, covering about 15 feet. Once they emerged from the tunnel, they found themselves in a section with about 3 feet of airspace. Meanwhile, the friend waiting outside grew increasingly anxious as no sounds or lights came from inside. After some time, he entered the cave himself but heard nothing and saw no signs of his friends. Unsure what to do, he called others with caving experience, then the police for assistance. Inside the cave, the 4 friends soon realized that the air in the new chamber contained high levels of carbon dioxide, known as bad air. This affected their ability to think, move, and breathe properly, making the return swim through the narrow tunnel extremely dangerous. They attempted to exit one at a time, but the first person underwater couldn't locate the exit before running out of breath. The increased carbon dioxide impaired her judgment and breath-holding ability. The second person to go in soon encountered the first, and this sequence continued until all 4 were trapped in the tunnel. When the police arrived, they attempted to pump oxygen into the cave while draining water, but tragically their efforts were in vain. The bodies were later recovered and the cave was subsequently sealed off with cement.
If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for the next one, join to my channel KzenaTopic. Have a nice day.